Good evening. Welcome to Vampire by Gaslight, a Victorian mystery and horror. We begin our mini-series opening in a dark, slightly foggy but otherwise dry evening in the streets surrounding Edinburgh Castle, where the assembled kindred have all been invited to attend the courtly chambers of their new prince, Colin McCormack. And I think we will begin with the Ravnos. How did the Ravnos, individually or together, arrive at Edinburgh Castle this night?
Well, I'm not sure about my compatriot, but Maxime arrives by proxy of a travelling entourage of the Romani. He's known, well, at least for members of his clan, for being quite, despite his rather unconventional looks, as many of the Romani in this part of the world do, Maxime is quite adept at blending in with the crowds of his former people. Now they are merely, they're his flock, after all. They are still technically those he watches over, those he shepherds. But he would arrive outside of Edinburgh Castle with, the small entourage that he was with, but, he would rightly, considering the reputation of his clan and of his former people, probably recommend that his entourage, go to a local pub to at least wait for him, as he attends to some rather important business with the local magistrates. And on approaching the guardsmen outside the Edinburgh Castle, Maxime will just simply smile at them. I have a very urgent meeting with your prince. I do think that the price of my entry can be, and he actually reaches into one of his pockets and holds out a few quite notably shiny-looking coins. Gold coins.
The two guards at the gate seem to... They have the long spear like weapons in their hands with the pikes on the top. And when they see you, they do stand to attention, but after seemingly glancing you over, they stand aside to allow you inside the building.
And Maxime simply bows his head in response to them and begins walking in.
We'll cut to Serena.
Well, Zarina's entrance isn't nearly as dramatic. She arrives alone, on foot. She's as well dressed as her resources allow her to be. So she has on a modestly priced dress with a fur coat that she likely made herself. And she will approach the guards at the gate. I am here for the meeting.
Before you actually get to the gate, there is you see a man on the other side of the street, a sort of scruffy-looking general sort of tradesman, and he looks directly at you, and he looks down in the distance where some of the caravans have gone. He goes, "Just one arise and then come to the other," and he spits on the ground. Gypsy scum. And then
Zarina,
he goes and yeah, and then he sort of makes his way towards the pub.
Zarina, she notices this, but she acts like that it doesn't bother her at all. She holds her head high and keeps walking.
And you get to the gates, and again the guardsmen look you over, seem satisfied, and allow you inside the building.
She smiles and nods at them gratefully and walks inside.
Lady Gangrel.
Hi, Bronwyn. She's making her way. Her tartan skirt wrapped around her waist, a shawl over her shoulders, pulled up over her head as well. As she makes her way up, almost just walking in without stopping to talk to guards.
The same man that spoke to Zarina a couple of moments before is caught again. His eyes caught. He stood there smoking in the door, and he says to her as she passes. She says, "I'd be careful, lass. Just seen 2 gypsies go in there."
She's gonna walk over towards him a bit quickly.
He smiles.
It's all right. Right, so you saw them in there. Is that all right? And she kind of pulls him towards an alleyway. What did they look like?
You know what they look like? Dark-haired, greasy, suspicious looking. Devil in them? No, sure.
The devil's in them. Oh, that's not good at all. She's gonna kind of step in very close to him.
He looks sort of pleased because she's an attractive woman and he's kind of an old man, and he looks sort of smug as she leans in close.
She's gonna go like she's whispering in his ear. So, they have the devil in them. Good. Glad. So do I, and she bites his neck. Drains like 3 points of blood out of him. Just leaves him, licks the wound and lets him drop to the ground and wipes her face and heads on in.
Okay. And you head into the building. Our miraculously refined Ventru gentlemen, what are they doing?
We are heading towards the castle in a carriage, and
what a surprise!
And when we approach the gate, do we get to pass the gate, or do we have to walk like peasants?
No, you may not pass the gate. No, I'm joking. You pass the gate, and you know that there are guards around. There are no. There doesn't seem to be any footmen. Nobody comes out to open the carriage for you, which is a bit annoying to people of your class.
Yeah. Well, Archibald will look to his companion and say, "Well, we're in Edinburgh. Guess we can't expect the same as back down south, eh?" And he will exit the carriage himself.
Jack will annoyedly tap his cane on the floor of the carriage and will just grumble. No one here is civil. And he will get out of the carriage and follow Archibald.
And Archibald will head up to the guard and say, good evening, my good man. We are expected inside."
The stoic, seemingly silent, wordless guards just allow you through, as they have done previously to the others.
Yeesh.
They're almost. Is it? They almost. I hasten to say gargoyles. They're not gargoyles, obviously, but they look like very very similar and very sort of generic and very stoic.
Yeah.
Very, they almost move robotically slowly as they open the doors for you.
Like random adversary in video game number 2503.
Yes.
Good. Well, we enter, I assume.
Yeah.
You all come into well, it's Edinburgh Castle. It's a beautiful building. It's filled with great tapestries and chambers and candlelight. There's a nice nice art on the wall. It's off period. I mean, it's probably the decoration inside here is probably about 16th century rather than the current decor.
Mm-hmm.
But it seems to be purposely kept that way. You are the group of you are gathered in the sort of chamber until you see this lady in the bottom left.
Ooh.
And steps out of one of the rooms, the double door. And she looks across all of you and she says, "Good evening."
Good evening, madam.
Good evening, madam. Pleasure to meet you.
Good evening.
Bronwyn just
My
glances
name-
in her direction.
My name is Victoria Barron, and well, we'll do more formal introductions inside. Please come in. And she opens the door for you to enter the room, and stands aside for you to all to pass.
Jack will kind of walk his way to the front, so he's one of the first to be able to enter the room.
Archibald will raise an eyebrow at that, but not say anything as he just heads into the room as well.
Zarina also walks in.
Oh, good.
Maxime walks in after Zarina. That he does, keep his eye on on the young lady that introduced him. He'll be like shuffling the gold coins in his hand as he walks past. But of course, he will look where he's going because reasons.
You're led into a room that has it looks like a dining hall. It has a very long wooden dining table, much like you would expect to see in a castle, with adjoining wooden seats. There's a throne-like chair at the very head of the table. But as you look more intricately onto the table's design, you'll see that it's sectioned off. It's in the carving. It's divided into different sections, and then there are clan symbols on each of the sections. And there are some people sat around the table, and they seem to be sat in section, as it were. And Victoria says, "Please, sit with your clanmates."
And Arthur will make his way over to the ventro symbol and properly take his seat. Are there anyone else there?
There is. You see the lady in the bottom right, who gives a slightly cutthroat look over you as you sit down, like a disapproving grandmother.
And Jack.
Go on.
Jack follows Archibald, and before he sits down, he will politely bow, but he won't wait for her to say that he's allowed to sit down. So after he raises back up, he'll sit down.
Arthur will bow to the lady as well, of course, before he sits.
Maxime, watching that whole display and feeling that, well, that kind of does explain a few things, he heads over to the section of the table with the spiked cross of the Ravnos clan.
You notice, typically for the Carola feudal system, the Ventru section is near the top, and the Ravenos and the Gangrel sections are near the bottom of the table, furthest away from the throne.
At least he doesn't have too far to walk.
The Ravenos section is so far empty, as is the Gangrel section at the moment, but there is the man in the top right loitering near the Gangrel section. He's not quite sat down yet.
Zarina will make her way towards the Ravnos section, a little bit surprised to see a Ravnos section, actually, but she'll take a seat at it nonetheless.
Bronwyn will head over to the Gangrel section. Eye the guy loitering. Take the front seat.
And you notice that Victoria goes and sits at the top of the table, not in the directly opposite to the Ventru side. There's the Bruges side, and she sits in the seat next to the prince's chair, or what you assume to be the prince's chair. And for a good, I mean, there are others sat at the table, but shall we not go through the whole list of them? I'm sure you'll meet them all in time. There's a couple of moments of people just sort of slightly awkwardly staring at each other across this table because it's an unconventional Elysium setup. Normally you have a ball or a masquerade or a theatre, but this seems it's a dark and dingy meeting table, and it has a sort of air of tension to it, like people waiting to discuss a war. And after a few minutes, there are trays of goblets brought to the table and placed within easy reach of all the sections. And they are filled with a blood point each. And I'm trying to read the chat, but what are you all doing so I don't have to read the chat?
Maxime, in his particular seat, he's kind of split between, just, smiling and nodding towards Zarina because, well, he's happy that he's not the only Roma in this in this quite odd meeting. And he occasionally looks over towards Victoria, though now that she's actually taken a seat pretty much right next to the princess, he's a little intrigued. But he tries not to make it too obvious.
Zarina will return the smile and nod at Maxime, but she also is surveying the room, keeping an eye on those above them.
Bronwyn's reclining very slouchedly in the chair picking her teeth with a knife and holding the glass that they just brought out of blood in the other hand. Occasionally pulling the knife out to take a sip.
Jack is looking around the table, assessing everyone. He doesn't seem to be interested too much in anything or anyone that's seated below his place on the table, but it's obvious that he has interest in everyone who's sitting above him, especially the lady that's sitting almost next to the throne. You can see he's not really enjoying the fact that she has a higher rank than he has.
Victoria just affixes, if anyone catches her eye, she just smiles at them quite pleasantly. And then all of a sudden she will stand and sort of pull back her chair, and you notice that people at the other sections of the table stand as well.
Taking this as kind of a prompt, Maxime will pull out his chair and stand.
Zarina will do the same.
Yeah, I think everyone will.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Jack will softly sigh and stand as well.
Bronwyn's probably the last person to stand up.
And a couple of seconds after everyone's finished standing, a stocky, short, dark-haired, bearded gentleman in 17th century style clothing enters the room. And he's not particularly large, but he has an air of intimidation about him. And very piercing blue eyes. He doesn't seem to rest his eyes on anyone in particular, but you all feel his gaze as he makes his way towards the table. And Victoria says, "Ladies and gentlemen, our Prince, Conor McCormack, Elder of Clan Brugia."
When she introduces the prince, Arthur will bow deeply towards him. He won't say anything, but he will bow.
Yeah, Jack will follow Archibald's example, and he will bow as well and stay like that.
The prince sort of looks, he moves to his throne, sort of making a sort of hasty downward gesture with his hand towards everybody, as if to say, "Sit down."
Bronwyn sits.
And so does Archibald.
And then he pulls out his chair. He seems impatient with the formality of it all. He sits in his chair, not very much like a Ventry prince would do, with an air of arrogance or propriety, but more he leans on the table, like a king awaiting his first meal, and looks to the newcomers. So we have new arrivals. He fixes his eyes on the Ventry first. "Well, let's hear it. Who are you?"
Archibald, well, by the way, will my 2 dots of etiquette allow me to know whether or not it is proper to stand or remain seated?
It would probably be traditional to stand. You can probably tell this prince isn't really the traditional sort. But probably to be on the safe side, he probably would stand.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Archibald will stand up and again bow deeply and says, "I am Archibald Parsons, my lord, child of Nathaniel Alberts of Oxford."
He nods.
And as soon as he's been recognized, Archibald will sit down again. If he gets leave to do so, of course.
He looks to Jack.
And Jack will rise, and instead of bowing, he'll put his right fist folded over his heart, and he will say, "My name's Jack Randall. I'm a banker by profession."
Well, the two of you will be under the careful eye of our countess. He indicates to the elderly woman sat next to you, who does a sort of bored but demure bow towards the prince.
And Jack will just nod and sit back down.
Then the prince will look to the man that stood behind her. How do I say this character's name without fucking it up? Bronwyn?
Bronwyn, yes.
Yeah, Bronwyn. He looks to the man that stood behind Bronwyn and says, "Well?" And this man, he gets a little bit closer to the table. He hasn't sat down or seemed to move any closer to the group for the whole time. But now he sort of awkwardly sits down next to Bronwyn. I'm waiting, Charles. And Charles looks to Bronwyn and he says, well, I'd introduce yourself if I was you.
He was looking at you, so I thought he was wanted your stuff next.
Oh, well, no, I think he just wanted me to sit down.
All right. Bronwyn, my sire, was called herself Sparrow, a bit flighty. And I'm up from a bit north of here, not too far. Gangrel. As if you couldn't tell.
I
She's remained sitting.
The prince seems... he flashes her a kind of in-depth look. And then nods and moves on to the Ravnos.
Maxime pulls out his chair first and unnecessarily clears his throat. Good evening, my prince. My name is Maxime, Baisha of Clan Ravnos. My profession involves anything related to gold. And he places a few of the gold coins that he was shuffling in his hands on the table. Look quite high quality.
The prince looks sort of... He can't really... he does look down the table. The clattering of the gold does take a few sparks of interest from other people sat around. People sort of do that thing where they sort of peer around the person behind, in front of them to to see what you're doing. And then he looks to the absent chair and puts his hand to his mouth slightly. Leaning over, he whispers to Victoria, who nods and stands briefly. And then he'll look to Zarina.
Zarina will stand and offer a slight curtsy, acknowledging him. Good evening, my prince. My name is Zarina Salazar. I just arrived in the city a few days ago. Clan Ravnos.
No. Good. Now, some of you might notice that the Ravnos have a seat at this table. Does any of you have a problem with that? He looks specifically to the Ventry.
I think everyone's going to look specifically to the Ventry.
Oh yeah, that's where Zarina's head went, was over to the Venture. Like
Archibald's first reaction is to look to his primogen, because she speaks for the clan.
The Countess has a look of she's quite sour-faced anyway, so it's quite hard to tell. But she shakes her head softly. Yeah, resting bitch face. She if she does have something to say about it, she's at least not going to voice it now.
Yeah.
It's obvious that Jack isn't looking at the Ravnos corner of the table, and he's just keeping his eyes towards the prince, and he'll answer, "No, my prince."
Good.
Like Arthur does look a little bit not worried, but a little bit surprised that Jack spoke when his primogen should have spoken, but he doesn't say anything.
Good. Grand. Marvellous. He puts his feet up on the table. We're still waiting. He says. And almost a couple of moments after, he said that the doors are flung open again, and this man appears with Victoria behind him. Darlev, you are late to my Elysium. And the Romani man standing there, he's wearing all these sort of furs, and as he bows, you see sort of a flicker, like snake skin of gold underneath. He says, "Deepest apologies, my prince, deepest apologies." Almost sort of gracefully to the Ravnos section of the table, smiling. Smiling. He has a kind of unnatural smile, like a dog baring its teeth at both Maxime and Zarina.
And Maxime offers, the expected deference to his elder, And he probably responds, well, first thing he would say is in the Romani language, may we speak later, Elder?
Of course, brother, of course.
Thank you.
He replies in Romani. And the Countess, when this sort of brief,
of course, she would naturally see that Maxime, he like bows his head like a little bit more not as deferredly as he had to the prince, but still, somewhat deferredly.
She does sort of lean forward and stare at you, and she says, "If we are to have the Ravnos at our table, let it be that they speak the Queen's English."
Maxime just kind of like looks over towards Zarina and his elder.
Zarina will slightly cringe.
And the prince sort of waits, sort of watching this exchange. Then he will wait until Victoria sat back down, and he'll say, "Those who are residents of this city are privy to the current problems that we're having. This is a new city, but it was a hard-fought province. There are many supernaturals that still wish to keep its sacred." He does sort of not inverted commas, a bit early for that, but he does a sort of a motion with his hand as if he doesn't believe in sacred sacred grounds for their own practices. So do not be surprised if you come across not only our kind in the woods. Recently, there has been a spate of disturbing masquerade breaches, and the entire collective are tasked with getting to the bottom of these occurrences. I expect all of you to help your clan in ensuring that the city is secure. But I will leave the details of the mission to our sheriff.
And Jack will just nod.
And the prince looks to Victoria, who smiles. Yes, she says. I will hold a briefing meeting, perhaps, and we can fill the newcomers in on the strange occurrences that have been happening all over the wooded areas of the city. Perhaps our new Ravnos friends might have an inkling. about the layout and mystical practices that might happen around Woodland. She says, sort of in an airy-fairy kind of way. Not obviously in a... not. She doesn't seem to be deliberately trying to be stereotypical.
It is my Jati's profession that such occurrences are to be dealt with if it means the continuing survival of ourselves as a clan and as a race.
Good. Wonderful. So, I think that we can all do marvellously together. And I think I can handle the formalities if you want to go back to what you were doing. She says sort of, and she reaches over and she sort of pats the prince's hand. And he nods and stands from the table. Again, everyone else stands up.
Yeah, exactly.
And he just nods, sort of gives a more bowing nod to the group before he will...
Bronwyn only raised her cup.
This catches his eye that she doesn't stand.
Wow.
And he says, Charles, after the Elysium's done, bring your new friend to me, won't you? And then he will leave.
As he leaves, Archibald will bow deeply until he is out of the room again, after which he will stand up.
And
Jack
Lisa
will do the same, but he
tries not to
won't
juggle
bow
3
as
accents
deep.
at once, because it's
Come
hard.
again?
Lisa excuses the prince so she doesn't have to juggle 3 accents at once, because it's fucking hard. It's fuck.
Yeah.
You're supposed to have a Scottish accent. I can't do it at the same time with the other NPCs, so just imagine it, bitches.
Yeah.
It's all good.
And Victoria, she looks at the prince's empty chair, and then she comes back and picks up a goblet. And she says, well, awfully quiet in here. Like a graveyard. Which brings me to the strange occurrences. So, recently, 4 graveyards in the city have been desecrated. And very strange symbols and claw marks and signs have been noted around the graves, which is causing the locals to be in a bit of a superstitious flurry, especially where, she nods to the Ravnos, you're kind of concerned. With the increase of the Romani population, these occurrences, although I'm sure unrelated, have increased as well.
We are used to such accusations, madam.
Serena just nods.
People are being drained and left in the graves in replacement for what was there before. Now, I, myself and the Scourge have been so far managing to cover up any kindred aspects. But I don't think it'll be too long before flaming torches are involved. If people's ancestors and children's graves and sites near to churches keep becoming paganized, as it were.
You look like there's something wrong with being pagan.
She just does a sort of hand in the air gesture at that. I'm going to wander out on a patrol in the coming evening, if anyone would care to volunteer to join me. She looks specifically at Jack for some reason.
Of course she does.
With a kind of
Jack will...
she looks at him with a kind of like daring look.
Jack sees this and he will stand and he will say, "Please allow me to escort you. A woman shouldn't be alone after dark."
Mm-hmm. Bear with me one moment.
Holy shit.
Shit, what roll is that? Wow.
So, don't worry, you're not going to be losing any body parts. You see, very sort of quickly, almost too quick for someone who's not sharp to notice. Victoria puts her leg up on the table, pulls out a knife, throws the knife at the wall, and just clips off a piece of Jack's hair as it sort of lands sort of perfectly in the center of the wall. And then,
okay.
and then she smiles.
And
she says,
Jack... Oh, okay, finish.
"Little old me, I'm sure your help will be greatly appreciated."
And
Archibald can't help but smile a little.
yeah, Jack will just grin at her mischievously and he will look at her exposed leg and he will just say, "You do have beautiful legs, my dear."
And you have the tongue of a man who's used to getting his own way. That should be interesting. For me, not for you. And she goes and plucks the knife out of the wall. And slips it back into the garter holster. And then looks to everybody else. Am I not hearing a rallying cry of, "We're behind you, our sheriff"?
Bron will stand up, holding her glass up. "Hey, we're behind you. 100%.
Good.
She nudges the guy sitting next to her.
He looks kind of if it's possible for a man to look mouseish or rattish, that's his general sort of demeanor. He has kind of a
Oh, come now, you're not some lily-livered little pansy, are you?
Ooh.
Zarina raises an eyebrow at this. She's now very interested in this exchange between the two.
As is Maxime, for that matter. He's carefully, quietly picking up the gold coins he put on the table just for show earlier on. Very subtly, very slowly.
Seems a lot of them are just a bunch of cowards. She's gonna look around at everybody.
Is she still standing?
Yes.
Zarina will stand up. I am no coward. She looks at her very intently.
Well, at least the women around here have some balls.
Arthur will also stand up and say, "Of course, we are behind you, Sheriff."
I'm no Krishatir, but what supports I can give, undoubtedly, and I hope that my elder would allow me, you have my support.
There we go, that's more like it. I was starting to fear that y'all were just a bunch of cowards, afraid to leave your lily white penthouses, your mansions, afraid to get your hands dirty. Good on ya. And she's gonna just kind of hit the shoulder of whoever's to the left of her.
And we lost our storyteller.
Yes, it seems so. Create havoc!
That's what I've been doing.
Yes,
Suddenly-
you are.
Suddenly, where doggos? Or maybe not.
Yes, where Doggo's doing a concern.
Exactly.
Kill the prince.
Heck!
Yes, just coming in and say heck, you know,
Exactly.
and being, you know, just being very offensive and everything, you know.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yay. We have an SC.
Hello.
Oh, there you go, my sheriff.
Yeah, where Doggos came in and did us all a concern. They're gone.
Exactly.
What happened?
Where Doggos came in and did us all a concern.
What? Okay.
Not really. Bronwyn was just talking more shit. It's fine.
Okay.
But she got everybody to stand up and agree to help the sheriff
Oh, well, this
did.
by
Oh,
insulting them and calling them
pleased.
cowards.
Oh, Victoria's pleased. You know, the Countess is just like, you know, a woman of my advanced age. We shouldn't be messing about in graveyards, but I wish you the best of luck. I'm sure you young men can handle it. Good. Good, good.
Mm.
Well, I really...
Bronwyn finishes her chalice and slams it down on the table.
Victoria says, well, I do hope we can all get to know each other a little better. But I do find these lengthy discussions a little dull. We've served our purpose. The Scourge tells me all sorts of things about where you might be, so I'm sure I'll be able to find you if I need to. She smiles sort of mischievously.
Who's a scourge?
I'm sure if you ever need to meet Scourge, then you'll find out all about him.
Him? I write that down as a guide. And she's kind of slowly looking over each of the men in the room now.
Well, for now, I will bid you all a pleasant evening. And she will curtsy and make her way out the same way the prince exited, as someone tries to stop her.
Archibald will again bow, but not as deeply as to the prince, of course, but politely enough as to be polite, and then he will sit back down and wait for someone else to do something.
People around the table seem to sort of be standing, well, not exactly, nobody's like rushing out, but people are standing, moving around with their goblets a little bit more, just sort of discussing further plans.
Maxime will hate to see Victoria go, but he'll love to watch her leave.
That ass, though.
Yeah, she does seem to be wearing sort of a modified dress, which is more appropriate apparently for combat.
Justica Dolan approves.
But once everyone's once all the top dogs have left the room and they're all free to to start discussing amongst each other, Maxime clears his throat and he heads towards Zarina. Madam, I apologize for not giving proper introductions before the meeting took place. My name is Maxime Vashya.
Zarina will.
And yes, you
smile.
would know Vashya are basically the Ravnos who deal with money and masquerade breaches and things like that.
Mm-hmm. She will smile at him. I see. I am Zarina Salazar. I just recently arrived here, but no apologies needed.
The now I have to switch overlays again. Wait. This guy, he comes up behind you both and puts his arms around your shoulders, and he says, in Romani, "Brother, sister, I have a camp set up. Perhaps later in the evening we can all meet there and discuss things. I have so much to tell you about what's going on in the city."
Of course, honored elder.
Yes, of course. I would never refuse such an invitation.
I would ask, though, are we, with our limited number here, equal in representation of each Yati? Yati being, the caste of each Ravnos. I'm hoping that you know. No?
Lisa, you're muted.
She's either muted or she's looking up the Ravnos clan book.
Our numbers have been growing recently, and we are balancing ourselves out, shall we say. But not all in the city welcome our presence, both our kind and not our kind. The prince and I have an understanding, but we'll talk about that more later.
Of course. The others, well, this, and he holds up one of his gold coins, opens more doors than most people would think. I will do everything I can for our clan here.
He runs his fingers through his beard, and you see the golden beads entangled in it. I'm sure you will. And he gives you a friendly pat on the back of your shoulder, and then he will move away.
Archibald will say, like, he will greet, like he will excuse himself to his primogen and to Jack, and he will say that because his player needs to leave, he will make a polite excuse and polite farewell and polite exit as a good venture.
Okay, no worries.
Head off into the night.
Wah, 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 wah. And the Countess will go to Jack, and she will say, Mr. Remind me of your name again.
Jack Randall, my lady.
Yes.
And he will slightly incline his head.
Jack Randall. Very good. I have a business place set up, and you should join me there. She takes out a lady's pocket watch. Tomorrow at 8 p.m. precisely. Do not be late. I don't tolerate rudeness or untidy hair. She says, sort of looking at his mop of dark hair. Scrupulously.
You can see thunder appear on Jack's face, but he will keep his mouth shut and he will just nod. There.
Good. And she indicates to a servant who brings over an envelope, one of which will also be given to Mark's character. And then the servant will follow her out as she walks with a cane. Sort of as you might expect of a woman of her age.
And Jack will kind of stare after her, still with thunder on his face.
And alltheoverlays.com. Bear with me. Talk amongst yourselves and try to find the overlay.
Bronwyn's sitting there in the chair, kind of reclined back, feet up on the table now.
Just after the Duchess disappears, you see this man. He was sat in the Toreador section. He sort of sidles over to Jack, looks after the Countess and goes, "Cantankerous old bitch."
And Jack will just smirk.
And then he holds out his hand and says, Christian Fortescue, Privileged of Clan Toreador.
And Jack Randall will extend his hand and he'll say, Jack Randall of Clan Ventru.
I won't hold that against you. He smirks. Then he leans in and he says, "Not bad, not bad." Looking between Bronwyn and Zarina as the newcomers. I wouldn't wager your bets with the sheriff, though. She's more likely to use your balls for ornaments, if you know what I'm saying.
I've noticed.
He pats him on the shoulder. Keeping my eye on you. And he'll pick up his goblet and then go back to talking with the other Toreador. So, our dear Miss Bronwyn.
Aye.
Aye. You've been the chap next to you eventually sort of he watches you drink and sit there sort of in your own happy way. And eventually it looks like he gets up the courage to say, I suppose I should take you to our meeting spot later this evening. The others the pack would be interested in meeting you.
All right.
But first, the prince. Just don't say anything stupid.
I haven't said anything stupid yet. Dad, I'm going to start now.
He nods. When he stands up, you notice that underneath his sleeves looks like there's bird feathers.
Yeah, she'll get up.
And he will lead her often to a staircase that leads up to the prince's private chambers.
She will follow.
And the room slowly starts to filter out. People make pleasant conversation, but ultimately the evening is drawing to a close. When Maxime and Zarina come out of the building, they notice that there's a large ornate caravan, very, very nice. Something denoting high status.
Periwinkle
waiting for them, along with Maxime's entourage from earlier.
Mm-hmm. Maxime will, mingle amongst his entourage, chat with them expectedly. He'll kind of like point out the rather prestigious, the rather lavish-looking caravan. And he'll obviously maybe introduce them to his elder, if they're so inclined. Beyond that, but obviously, he'll wait for the introduction because etiquette demands.
Well, your elder is seems to be warmly greeted by your entourage, and they have been fed and watered and given good company in the time that they've been waiting. And when it is time for a pair of you to leave, you're both offered a seat next to Rolav on the caravan. Next to Rasputin, yeah.
I'm going to end up starting calling him that.
Rasputin. No, don't make me do that. Just get on the caravan and fuck off.
Alright, then we know when we're not wanted. But yeah. Yeah, Maxine will get on the caravan as directed and fuck off.
Excellent.
As will Zarina.
Now I know how my ancestors felt.
How does Jack make? What does Jack do with the rest of his evening?
Ooh. I think he'll go back to his. He'll go back to his house and make preparations for the date that he has with his lovely primogen for the next day.
During his walk, he's probably stopped, or not stopped, but propositioned a few times by working girls.
Oh shit!
Because a gentleman walking alone in Edinburgh this time of night could only really be looking for one thing. Otherwise, he'd be in his carriage, surely.
Yep, didn't think about that.
I was about to ask you to make a self-control, and I was just like, nah, actually.
Are they good looking?
Do you want to indulge in it? Well, I hate it when that happens. Draw a chance dice and it's like blank. Yeah, that's helpful, isn't it? Yes! One of them was particularly young and good looking. Not bad. Maybe she hasn't been doing it for very long.
Yep, I'm going with her.
Good. Well, not
What?
good. Not good for her. Not good for her, to be honest. Because you're going to punch her in the face, probably.
Yep.
But, yeah. She takes you aside, and you may feed if you want to. And amidst the screams of a battered woman, I think that will be the moment that we end the scene. Thank you, players, for playing. Thank you, watchers, for watching. Until next time.